So a couple days ago, I ran into a Sona top lane player, and pretty much everybody on our team, including myself, thought we were getting grief. She started with Spellthief's Edge, and Spellthief's Edge in a solo lane in Season 10 really isn't something that should be viable, so everybody on our team just expected it to be a troll, but she actually ended up doing really well. And after the game, I decided to do a little bit of research myself to see if this was actually a legit strategy, and there is actually some high elo Sona players right now playing her up in the top lane and having a lot of success with it. So in this video, we're going to be going over everything you need to know about Sona top lane so that you have a good idea as to how you should play it and why it's actually not troll. Now, I'm not 100% sure who is the original person who came up with the Sona top lane strategy, but I want to give credit to where credit's due. So when doing the research for this video, the post on the Sona main subreddit is where I kind of found out about this strategy. Dark Dog is the person who ended up making the post on the Sona main subreddit. Right now, he's ranked 381 over on the EUS server. He's Grandmasters, 158 LP, 55% win rate on the Sona top lane. So he's the one that I'm going to be basing this video off. I'll be using his gameplay in the background there, and I'll be sure to leave links down in the description below to his Reddit post along with his op.gg. So if we just jump right into how this strategy is going to work for you, number one, you're going to want to start off with the Spellthief's Edge as your starting item. Once you get to lane, you only want to be CSing some melee minions and all cannon minions. The reason for this is because if you end up CSing more than 20 CS per 5 minutes, it's going to reduce the amount of gold you're getting from your Spellthief's Edge procs, and you don't want this. You want to be able to stack your Spellthiefs up as quick as possible. You want to get that at the max stacks there, get all the wards from the item to help your team control objectives in the mid to late game. So your main goal with this Sona top is to just poke the enemy as much as you can in the laning phase, generate these Spellthief stacks as fast as you can. Now, one might ask, aren't you going to be losing out on way too much gold throughout the laning phase if you're not taking CS? And the answer to that is not really. You have to take into account that you're not going to be able to perfectly CS throughout the laning phase, right? So if you were to start a Doran's Ring and you were to just CS perfectly in the laning phase, you'd actually probably end up with just a little bit more gold than if you were to start a Spellthief's and only CS 20 CS per 5 minutes. When you start with the Spellthief's, it's a 400 gold item and it's going to transform into a 1700 gold item for free. You only have to spend 400 gold on that, and you're going to be getting a bunch of AP, a bunch of health regen, mana regen completely free once you do get that maxed out. And you're also going to be generating gold from your Spellthief's procs in the laning phase too. So overall, you're not actually losing out on as much gold throughout the laning phase as you would think. And then once you hit level 6, this is where the strategy starts to get pretty interesting. You're just going to want to abandon top lane and you're just going to roam either mid or bot and start getting your other lanes ahead. Then once you reach the mid to late game, you kind of just want to let your AD carry and your mid laner take all the CS. As Sona, you're going to be playing her more so as a support champion in the mid to late game. You're going to be supporting your carries, so you're not going to be the one taking the CS later on in the game. So let's dive a little bit deeper now as to why this actually works, because you wouldn't really expect for a support up in the top lane, even with this strategy, to really succeed, but it does right now for a couple different reasons. Number one is that top lane's impact compared to other roles at the moment just isn't that great. Dragons are so influential here for Season 10, so by using this strategy on the Sona top lane, by roaming at the level 6 there, it's going to allow yourself to get your mid and bot ahead. If you can get your mid and bot ahead, and if you can control those early dragons, then that's going to be much more worth it than you sitting top lane and getting a couple hundred gold worth of CS or just getting a little bit ahead in XP. It's going to be much more worth it for you to get an early dragon or for you to get your mid and bot ahead. And then because traditional supports are just used to being behind in gold and used to being behind in XP, you're a lot less level and you're a lot less item reliant when you are playing this Sona top lane. So if you're roaming, if you can help your other lanes get ahead, it doesn't even matter if you're behind a little bit in gold and XP. That's standard for a support champion, right? So as long as you're providing your team with some good raw damage in fights and the utility you provide with Sona, a lot of the time that's going to be much more useful than what the enemy top laner is going to be able to provide. And then in this patch, Sona did get that nice little buff to her E as well. I don't think this is the main reason as to why this is just strong in this patch now. It was being played in last patch as well, and players were having good success with it, but the buff in this patch nonetheless does help out her roaming potential, does make her roaming potential even better there at the level 6, so just allows her to get around the map and provide her team with a little bit more utility. Now you also might ask, why does this work better up in the top lane? Why can't you play it in the mid lane? And there's a couple of different reasons for this. Number one is that it's much more important for you to play a mid lane champion that has some wave clear or that has the ability to get early priority than playing like a top laner who can get early priority. If you're shoved in with Sona in the top lane, if you're not able to roam first, it's not going to hurt you as bad as if you're playing mid lane Sona and getting shoved in a ton. Like if you play mid lane Sona, you go up against something like a Talon or a Kiana, you're basically just completely coin flipping the game throughout the first couple levels there, because they're going to be able to roam first. They're probably going to like be able to kill your jungler at Scuttle Crab, and you're not going to be able to do anything with it. Also, the Sona mid just has no wave clear throughout the game, and it's much more important for the mid laner to have some sort of wave clear to help their team out. Also, up in the top lane, you just have easier matchups. In the mid lane, you're playing against a lot of champions that can burst you out really easily, like burst mages, any champion that can like get on top of you right away and just one shot you, or any champion that can outrange you can do great into the pick, and you don't see as much of that up in the top lane. Alright, so that was basically a TLDR as to how you're supposed to play it, but we should go a little bit more into detail as to some specifics that are very important for the Sona top lane. So you're going to want to take Ignite on the Sona top. You don't want to take the Teleport. Reason being is because once you do reach the mid to late game, or once you reach level 6 actually, you're going to be roaming, you're going to be with your team pretty much all the time. You're not going to be split pushing at all with the Sona top lane, so you don't really need the Teleport. Taking the Ignite there allows you to have extra kill pressure throughout the laning phase and throughout the game. If you end up poking the enemy out multiple times with your Q in the laning phase, it's actually pretty surprising like how much burst damage you do have with the Sona top if you do take this Ignite. Now early on in the laning phase, you just really want to make sure you're not dying with the Sona top. If you end up dying a couple times in lane, it's really going to halt your ability to just get your Stealth procs and start scaling into the mid game there. So you just want to make sure that if you're in a more difficult matchup, let the enemy shove into you in the first couple levels there. If the enemy does have a very strong level 2 all in, respect that, just back off a little bit, let the wave bounce into you, and try to get a freeze for yourself in front of your tower. Now whenever the enemy looks to go in for CS, or if they just waste an ability in the laning phase, that's when you should be looking to get your Q procs, proc your Stealthies. You just want to be procking this as much as you can throughout the laning phase. You want to make sure that you're stacking that up as fast as possible, getting that maxed out there, because once you do get it maxed out, you're going to be getting the wards, you're going to be getting a bunch of bonus stats there from the items. So you do want to make sure you're stacking this as efficiently as possible. And then once you do reach the mid to late game, just hard focus on controlling objectives. You're going to have 2 champions on your team that do have the support items. So you're going to have a ton of wards. You're going to have so many wards on the map around objectives. You're going to be able to just get picks really easily once you do reach the mid to late game there. So that should be your main focus with the Sona top. Once it does reach that stage of the game, just really be focused on getting to objectives before they spawn, setting them up, and finding picks. And then if we round it out here by going over the setup you should be running on your Sona top lane, for the runes, it's going to be Dark Harvest with Taste of Blood, Ghost Poro, and Relentless Hunter. So for the Dark Harvest there, in a lot of your melee matchups, you're actually going to be able to chunk the enemy pretty low throughout the laning phase. You're going to be able to get quite a few Dark Harvest procs. Also at level 6, when you start roaming with the Sona top lane, you're going to be in other lanes a lot of the time. You're going to be chunking the enemies out a ton. So you're going to be able to find yourself getting a lot of Dark Harvest procs with this Sona top. Secondary runes there is going to be Presence of Mind along with Cut Down. Cut Down, like you're going to be a lot squishier than most other champions in the game with Sona, so you're going to really benefit from that Cut Down rune there. Presence of Mind just overall really good on Sona because you don't have to go for like tier. If you do take Presence of Mind, it's just going to give you a ton of extra mana, and it's going to be really nice, like just getting that mana regen in fights when you do end up picking up kills. And then if we move on to the build now, this is where it does get really interesting. So obviously you want to start off with the Stealthies Edge there, but for your first item and on your first base, you want to pick up a Kerchi Shard. I'm pretty sure that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, but nonetheless, you want to pick up that item, and the reason being is because it's a very cheap Lich Bane pretty much. You're going to be getting a bunch of bonus magic damage on hit from that item, so it just allows for you to pick up a very cheap poke item throughout the early game there, and it just adds to your damage throughout the early to mid game. This is even a perfectly viable strategy for Sona support in this patch right now too. A lot of high elo players are going for this Kerchi Shard as their first item on Sona support. So for the rune page and for the build path here, you can use these on Sona support and you can still have some great success with it. And then your other early game items there are going to be your Sork Boots. You usually want to grab those pretty early on in the game because it's going to allow you to roam better there. It's going to give you that bonus movement speed and that bonus magic penetration. You want to be grabbing the Sheen there as well. On your next couple of bases, you ideally ideally want to be grabbing Sork boots pretty early on, because once you do hit the level 6, you're going to be looking to roam, so having that bonus movement speed from the Sork boots is going to be really important. You also do want to grab the Sheen pretty early on, and then once you hit the mid game, your core items are going to look like ideally having your Spell Thieves like fully maxed out. You should have your Shard of True Ice. Once you do reach the mid game, you're going to have your Kerchi Shard there, your Sork boots, your Lich Bane fully completed, and then he does like to go for a Zhonya's as his second core item. And then an example full build here, like honestly in most of your games you're not going to get past like 3 core items, but in most of his games what he does is he grabs the Lich Bane, the Zhonya's, and then either a Rabadon's or an Athene's as your third item there. If the enemy team has like a bunch of magic damage, then you can grab Athene's. If you just want more damage, if you're snowballing really well, you can grab the Rabadon's there. Like you just do an immense amount of damage with those 3 items, with the Lich Bane, the Zhonya's, and the Rabadon's once you do hit that spike. And then for your ability maxing, really simple stuff. It's going to be Q first, W second, and E last. You might think that you'd want to like max out your E first or second, like if you're playing this roaming Sona top, but you really don't need to. 1 point in E is all that he does on his Sona top lane. Maxes his Q first, W second, and then E last. Alright, so that is going to be it, guys. That's going to round out the video. Hopefully this does give you a pretty solid idea now as to why Sona top is a pretty good strategy for Season 10, and if you do end up seeing it in one of your solo queue games in the near future here, at least now you'll know as to why this isn't troll, and you won't make the same mistake that I made of like spam pinging my Sona top, spam pinging her Spell Thieves Edge at the start of the game, and just getting her tilted, and tilting myself as well. So if you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in my next video.